Yeah, no, thank you so much. Yeah, and sometimes the people that present, like I need to check up on them, and sometimes like, oh no, ish, I forgot, and okay, I'll get back to you. I'll prepare, tomorrow, etc. Yeah. Anyways,
Mm-hmm.
I want to see. Uh, okay, cool. Yeah, we are live now, and so
Okay.
double check. Sure. Yeah. Yeah, there are people that are joining us. So yeah, guys, welcome to another session. And yeah, so if you are joining us, just greet us as usual. Say hi and tell us which country you are streaming from. Yeah, it's always nice just to see who's joined us. And yeah, so today, we've got an exciting topic, and you know I think it's worth spending a bit of time to always ask ourselves, right, how can you do things differently, what will add value into the work that we do. And yeah, so we're going to be talking about data driven design, the role of data in design. So yeah, I'm quite excited. I've got, a lovely lady, Quinette. She's actually her name. Sorry, her name is Onyekachi. I hope I got that, correct. Yeah, so she's from Nigeria. We've had a lot of people participating from Nigeria, so it's always like great, to receive the love from Nigeria. So yeah, guys, yeah, we appreciate the love. Thanks a lot, and also, we want people to come and contribute to the conversation. And yeah, please share your comments, share your thoughts, share your questions, and we'll engage. And yeah, I will basically display the messages that you guys are posting. And yeah, I can see we are joined by Latte Lawson from Lagos, Nigeria. Great to see you, man. Um, yeah, it's a beautiful day in Johannesburg, in South Africa, and I hope you're doing great, Quinette. So yeah, without like wasting time, I want to introduce Quinette. She's been part of this a community, and I was quite glad when she said she wants to speak about this topic. And it's a topic that we have to continuously engage on, right? Because when it comes to data, there are multiple levels and layers to it, right? And I know this won't do justice because there's quite a lot to talk about. So yeah, I'm seeing Kehinde Oyawele from Nigeria. I'm seeing also Roni Opunga from Kenya. um, so yeah, Quinette, please introduce yourself, and tell us, what you get up to, when on your spare time, what you're about, what do you do, and anything interesting about yourself. It would be great to know. Thanks.
Right. Thank you very much. First, I would like to confirm that you can hear me clearly.
Yes, yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, great. So hi everyone. Thanks for joining us today on this stream as we talk about like a very interesting topic to me. My name is Quinette Onyekachi, as was earlier said, and I'm a product designer based in Lagos, Nigeria. I currently work for a telehealth startup, right? So what we essentially do is make therapy accessible to everyone, pretty much, especially people in Africa and of course Nigeria, right? So beyond that, I am also a design mentor. I am, of course, I also do public speaking on side, and then lastly, I think the most interesting part of me is that I play video games a lot. So I mean, I'm also a gamer. Yeah. So that is like a really brief rundown about me and what I do. Thank you very much.
Okay, sure. No, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. Yeah. Hello, Alison Ayo from Nigeria. Great, to see you guys. And also I'm seeing Uthman Osuolale, also from Nigeria in Lagos. So yeah, guys, if you're joining us, just greet us, let us know which country you're streaming from, and yeah, we're about to get started. Please engage, ask your questions, share your thoughts, and there's always like something new, that we can all that we can learn from each other. So yeah, please, take it away. As I said, today we are talking about the data-driven design, the role of data in design. That is the topic of today. Thank you so much, Kunet. Over to you.
Yeah, I think the
Yeah.
last thing I heard was thank you so much, Quinette.
Yeah, no, I'm saying like over to
I'm
you.
not.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, yeah.
okay. Yeah. So at this point, I can start to share my presentation, right?
Yes, 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 yes. Yeah. You can just share from your
Okay.
side.
Okay. Great stuff. I'll just go ahead now to share.
Yeah. There should be like a share screen option at the bottom.
Okay. Yeah, I see.
Yeah.
Okay. Great.
Cool. Awesome.
I don't know. Can you see my screen now?
Yes, I can see. Maybe just need to choose another tab. Hello, Obina, Ezekwesili from Washington, D.C.
Okay.
Great to see some people from the US. And yeah, welcome, welcome, welcome. Precious as well. And Matthias. So yeah, we're all good. I can see your presentation. And what I'll do is like, I will be switching to different views. If you're not seeing my face, just know
Mm-hmm.
that I'm here. So, because sometimes, because
Okay.
yeah, because the screen, covers a bit of what you're sharing, and don't panic. Just trust that I'm here. Awesome. Thanks.
Sure thing. Yeah, thank you very much again. So yes, guys. So today I'm going to be talking about data-driven design, the role of data in design, and I'll just start by saying that role of data in design cannot be overemphasized, right? As it is an essential part of our task or an essential part of our design processes, right? So as designers, you would find that when we design products or we design experiences or we design solutions, right, you realize that a whole lot of time we need to sort of like depend heavily on our users, right? So all of those information that we get from our users are the things that we call data, right? And then there's also the business part of it that not a lot of people talk about, especially when you talk about data. So you'll most likely hear things around how do we get or how do we do some user research, right? So, I mean, in today's talk us through what data-driven design is, and then of course the role in of data in design, and then I would go ahead to speak. We can get data for your next design project, and of course how you can apply the data that you have collected or gathered into your design process. I mean, I've been meant to do my introduction, but for the sake of those of us just joining, I'm just going to introduce myself again. My name is Queen Eton, designer based in Lagos, Nigeria, and I'm currently building a telehealth solution that makes therapy accessible. Right. So essentially, what we are trying to do. Could you please confirm you can hear me?
Quinette, we can hear you. I am here. And also Lulu Banat, thanks for joining us from South Africa. She's also confirmed that she can hear you. Quinette, I'm not sure if there's an issue with your connection. Okay, guys. Yeah, let's just give Quinette a bit of time, and let's see if she can rejoin shortly. And yeah, to those who are joining us, thanks a lot. And yeah, it's really great to see that the community is growing. And yeah, just greet us, say hi, tell us which country you're from. And yeah, it's great to see people from the various African countries, and also I'm seeing some people joining from the US, which is great. Quinette, yeah, I can see you, and I hope good. Yeah, please let me know if you. I'm happy to share your slides from my side as well.
Yes, please. I think that would be better.
Okay, that's fine. Let me
Okay.
do so.
All right. Thank
Just
you very much.
okay, cool. Sure. Yeah, all good. And I will just
Okay.
move on to the next slide. I think you were just
Yes,
talking
please.
about yourself, and let me
Yes.
know.
Okay.
Do you want me to move on?
Good. No. Okay. Yeah. So I was talking about myself, right? So I'm saying that I'm a product designer based in Lagos, Nigeria, and we are currently building a telehealth solution, right, that allows users all around Nigeria and Africa at large to access therapy, right? And also, I'm also a public speaker and a design mentor, and of course, a part-time gamer. Yeah, you can go to the next slide now, please. Okay, so for today, I would be talking about what really is data-driven design, right? Or when people say data-driven design, what do they mean? And then I would also be talking about the role and importance of data in design. I would then go ahead to talk about how we get data for your next product, for your design project, and then how you go from data to high fidelity design and maybe launch. Yeah, next please. Yep. So I'm just going to juggle your memory or your brains a bit, right? Just to be on, just to touch base with what data really is, right? So let's say you have been reached out to by maybe a client, or you have this certain idea to build a solution, right? I would say a solution for children, right? Now, what the solution is meant to do is we want to be able to track sleeping time for children, right? So what that means, I don't know if you've ever heard maybe nursing, you've ever heard mothers or new mothers or um, what would I call them now? Newborns, right? They tend to have this issue with waking up at night and stuff, right? So we want to be able to track the time when they sleep, the time when they are up, and then when they sleep again, just so we can sort of like create a pattern for them, right? Now, this product is essentially supposed to be used by who? So that is the first question we're going to ask ourselves, right? Who is the solution for, right? And then so the next thing is, if we are going to be building the solution for children, how do we get data to sort of like validate our ideas? What are the impressions we have on first sight? um, I mean, who are the right people to talk to? And then, of course, what are like the solutions that are currently in market that have solved problems like this, right? So it is at this point you would then realize that you would need a lot of data to inform most of your design decisions, or most of even your marketing decisions, right? So that's why I go ahead to say, oh, since everybody says content is king, I go ahead to say no, data is king, right? So the idea behind this is, even before you create content for, could you please confirm you can hear me?
Yes, 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 yes. Loud and clear.
Great. So even before you so even before you begin to publish marketing materials, before you publish your social media content and all of that, right? You still need to
Yeah.
get data to inform all of those things, right? So now, could you please go to the next slide? Yeah. So what then is data-driven design, right? So data-driven design, according to what I have in my slide, is a decision-making approach to design process to the design process that heavily relies on collected data from customers' behavior and attitude, right? But then I go ahead to rule out, or to stroke out the customers and say it's data about people's behavior and attitude, because from a design perspective, um, they are beyond customers at this point, right? So now they are like, you're thinking about it from like the people's standpoint, right? So from here you will just realize that essentially data-driven design, or data is essentially what informs all of your design processes, right? So from when you begin to do your research, to when all the way to when you even go into wireframing, high fidelity, and of course, you then move to maybe your execution, your development, and all of that, and then you hand off, right? Even before you launch, there is still a place of data. Even after you launch, there is still a place of data. Because even after you launch, you realize that you still, for your next round of iterations, you still need data to inform all of those processes, right? So yeah, please go to the next slide.
Yeah, so I think it's very important, right? I see you've scratched, customers, and you said people, right? And
Yeah.
I just wanted to, highlight that. So we used to talk about like, user-centered design, and we moved to like human-centered design, and the strong emphasis there is actually on, on human-centered approach, right? And I think the very important thing, for us is to, because when you think about the customer, you think about someone, an individual at that point in time who's coming to interact or engage with your product or service, right? And and then you call that person a customer, right?
Like us.
And
Yeah.
but when you say people, right? That your approach forces you to think of that individual not as a once-off interaction, right? Because you need to
Yes,
understand
exactly.
that this is a mother of two. you know
Yes.
this person, has to pick up their children or drop off their children, and this person, has got preferences, has got challenges. you know this person is not only using my solution. you know if I'm working for Instagram, I'm actually designing for someone who's also using WhatsApp, someone who's using a banking
Yes.
solution, etc. Yeah. So I think it's important, for us to highlight, the need to scratch customers so that we can elevate people to enforce,
Yes.
human-centered approach. Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, I mean, just to add to what you have just said, right? So the entire reason for that is you want to be able to think about these people as first humans before your customers, right? Or users, right? So you want to first of all think about them as humans. How would they act in like their natural environment and all of that, right? So those are like the things to watch out for. Yeah, so thank you very much for that.
Sure.
So what do experts say about data driven design, right? So for them, in the book Designing with Data, Rochelle King and Elizabeth Churchill said data capture, management, and analysis are the best way to bridge between design, user experience, and business relevance, right? So I find this really interesting because when people talk about data, the first thing that comes to mind is user research. But nobody exactly talks about market research or even the business aspect of data, right?
Yeah.
Because you're coming into a market that probably has existing solutions. So you still want to know what are the strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities, and of course threats to that product that you are building or to that solution you are building, right? So these are also the things that I would also be touching base with on in this presentation, right? Because I picked this very definition because it highlights the fact that data is that bridge between design, user experience, which is people or human experience, and business relevance, right? So yeah, next slide, please. Yeah, so that being said, I mean, we've looked at all of these very professional definitions of what data is or data driven design is. And then interestingly, when I was reading up this topic, I found out that there's also data informed design, and then there is data driven design. But what I could pick out of these two is that data is the station that powers your product, essentially, right? Whether it is data informed or data driven. So data driven is that data is at the center your of everything you're doing, basically. So you rely heavily on data for data driven, and then data informed is more or less like you are still giving room for like other opinions, or in some cases you're giving room for assumptions and all of that, right? But in all, right, what I was able to get from both definitions or what both describe is that data is the station that is essentially the station that powers product, right? So what data does for you is it either validates or eradicates your assumptions. Now it's funny when people I read up some case studies, and then I see that when they talk about how they've gone about a project, they totally eliminate the fact that there was first an assumption, right? Now, when you have an idea, or when you're trying to solve a problem, right? There are two things that might happen. Is it that you have been a user of a
Yeah.
product that you're trying to solve, right? Or you are experiencing a certain type of pain that you're willing to or you want to solve, right? Now, the first point of research, or the first thing that you would ordinarily do is that you have a lot of assumptions around the solutions that you're trying to bring up, right? So you would assume that, so now let's say again back to the story of being a building a solution for babies or for children to document their sleep and their wake up time, just to be able to create do the first thing you would do. Can you still hear me clearly, please?
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Okay, great. So the first thing you will do is you will just assume that, oh, I was once a child, so I should be able to solve this problem since I was once a child, right? But you would also fail to understand that maybe how you grew up might have affected maybe your sleep routine or whatever, right? Your parents, maybe the style of parenting might also affect all of those kind of things, right? So it's okay to have assumptions, right? So first you have an assumption, and then you go ahead to either validate or eradicate or even enhance those assumptions, right? So just a point to note is not, I don't know where to say that's the first point of data you get in touch with, because those assumptions are coming from yourself, right? So yeah, so just to put this in perspective, the point is
Yeah.
data would either validate your assumptions or totally eradicate them. Yes, please. Yeah. So now that we have all understood what I'm assuming at this point that we have all understood what data-driven design is, and if you do not understand it at this point, you can still leave your questions in the comments, and then he will read them to me, and then we can, of course, attempt to answer them. So the next thing is the role and importance of data in design. So why do we need data as designers, right? Yes, please go on to the next slide. Yeah. So again, I was, of course, I was reading through like documents and articles talking about data, and of course from my personal experiences. So I just began to like write things down. I'm like, so why exactly do we need data? Why can't we just build out a product, allow it to launch, then fail, and then come back and keep trying or attempting to solve a particular problem? Why can't we just go that route, right? As opposed to doing some sort of like comprehensive research and all of that just to get data to inform our decisions, right? So I came with these 3 points that I feel like are like very essential, or are like the most essential reasons why we use data. Now, the first thing is data helps us get feedback on how people are using our products at every step of the way. Now, as I speak through this, I would try to put it in perspective from my own experience. So when I started designing our current solution, I have never been to therapy, right? And I, let alone knowing what a virtual therapy session would look like, right?
Yeah.
So if I go ahead to design, I would miss a lot of things, right? So again, let me also mention that I came in as a designer to improve on an existing product. Now, what so the first step for me essentially was to understand or to get feedback from users of the current solution, right? How do they feel about the solution? How are they completing certain tasks on the product that we have? How are they able to move from point A to point B? What is the onboarding time for them like? What are like the most frustrating parts of this product for them? What what um what features would they like to see on the application? And let me also mention that this application is a two user type application. So one is for the client who is seeking therapy, and then the other is for the provider who is the therapist, right? So I want to know how the therapists are finding their end of the solution, and also how the clients are also finding their end of the solution, right? Now, I would also talk about how to get data for your project, right? But what I essentially wanted was I wanted feedback on how they are finding the current solution, and then of course how I can better create how I can create better experiences for them, right? But that's like in the second point, right? Now, um, from even before I go into designing, right, that is what I do, right? I want to talk to the both existing and even potential users, or even users that have used other solutions, right? So I want to speak to people who have tried even traditional therapy, like offline therapy. I want to know how those steps are for them, right? Now, the second thing is, now I've started designing, I will be designing from a designer's point of view and from a tech person's point of view. So what this means is probably know how to navigate the internet really well. When I see a hamburger menu, I know that that is a hamburger menu. But the point is, do my users do they know how to again?
You seem you are frozen there a bit.
Sorry, I didn't get that. Sorry.
I'm saying like you were frozen a bit.
Okay. So at what point did you lose me, please?
Yeah, no, it's fine. I mean, like you were, talking about the therapy, example.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. It was
Okay.
just like a
So now,
couple of seconds. Yeah.
okay, great. So now, so again, I said I'm designing from like a designer's point of view and from like a tech person's point of view who knows her way around the internet, who knows her way around like applications and stuff. But there are very high chances that people who might come on to use my application are not very high tech end people, and they probably
Yeah.
do not understand. Yeah, they probably do not understand how to navigate their way or how to find their way around the internet or even the solution they have provided. Then now comes in another loop for another feedback loop, right? Now, what I want to do is I do not want to design, implement, and then go to market with a solution that doesn't work. So at every step of the way, I want us to inform the next step. Now that then comes what we call the usability test, right? Or in some cases, I have found myself using A/B tests just to find out what experience my users would like to go with, right? So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get as much feedback again to sort of like inform like the next step of my design, right? So when I get the feedback from my users, I can then do like an analysis or sort of like translate those information. The second one is to create better experiences for people or to create experiences for people, right? Um, so I just made mention of using A/B tests to test out certain experiences or certain designs, just to get feedback on what, yeah, just to get feedback on what the user's preference is, right? Again, the designer is not always the user, right? Or in most cases, right? Designers probably would never even use the applications they are building, right? But you want to, so I mean that is like the entire essence of data, because you want to be able to solve the problem of the people that you are designing for. Because again, you are not the user, so you have to just find a way to sort of like see through the lens of the user, right? So that's like for the second one, which is to create better experiences for people. And then the last one is to personalize experiences. I find this one very interesting because we have seen it play out in like a large range of products, right? A good example of this is yesterday a good number of us noticed that we can now upload voice notes to to our WhatsApp status.
Yeah.
That was very hilarious. When I saw it, I kind of
Hey.
felt like, oh hell no, I do not want this. I do not want this feature at all, because I have like a couple of friends that would abuse that feature, right?
Yeah.
But then
I,
again,
I
I
saw a
had
lot of people posting that on Twitter, and yeah, a
exactly.
lot of people are just like testing, and
Mhm.
yeah, it's
Yeah, yeah. So
interesting.
for someone, yeah. So the thing is, so I was saying that I have like a lot of people who would use that feature a lot, because I had like when I put it up on my status that, oh my gosh, WhatsApp now has the ability to upload voice notes on their status. I had a friend reach out to me to say, oh yeah, that he really loves that feature because now he's going to use the feature as opposed to writing, right? So he feels like typing is more tedious, and then he feels like he's going to use the voice notes feature a lot, right? So now they're able to meet his own needs, and then they have been able to personalize that experience for them. Now, another example or case in hand would be the dark and light mode of any product. So you realize that most products these days they tend to have the ability for you to switch from either light mode to dark mode. Now you would find some people say, "Oh, I'm a dark mode person." You'll find other people say, "Oh, I'm a light mode person," and all of that, right? And again, for accessibility's sake, you would also find that or maybe for some people who just want like high contrast and of course for accessibility, right? They've been able to personalize the experience for them and say, okay, since I mean we've been able to meet two types of people who want to use the light mode or who want to stay on the dark mode, and of course people who want to stay on the dark mode as well, right? So there is a bit of personalization in that. And then there's this very nice thing I like about certain applications. So when you enter into certain applications, they tell you things like "Welcome, Queenette," right? There is this sense of, oh, wow, I really like this. Like it's my name, as opposed to say, if I enter an application and they're like, "Hi," and then I enter another application and they're like, "Hi, Queenette," there is like a difference in it, right? And then we've been able to see that maybe people feel more or attached to something that has their name in it as opposed to something that is for everybody, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so there is like um, getting data just for the sake of personalization. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know
Yeah.
if you wanted to say something to that.
Yeah, no, so I mean, there's quite a lot of reasons, right? You've mentioned the three, to help to know how people are using the products, to create experience, and to personalize, right? And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so I mean, I've been using Google Analytics, quite a lot, and amongst like other tools, and it's always great to know, where people are coming from, who is
Mm-hmm.
using, your solution, what
Mm-hmm.
devices are using, how long are they staying, and so we are in a time where we are beginning to design for hyper personalized experiences,
Yes.
and it
Yes.
means that, we need to cover more than just the basics about how we know, humans, and beyond just, the basics, in terms of like knowing you through data, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so you've mentioned, data informed, and mentioned data driven, right? And so data driven, design is a manual approach that a designer has to go through, right? And then
Mm-hmm.
the next level, right, that actually elevates and or sort of that promotes the hyper, personalized experience, is to actually to have the through the use of AI, right, being able to access that big data to
Mm-hmm.
make decisions on time, right?
Yes.
And those
Mm-hmm.
decisions are based on data, right?
Yeah.
And like now, I mean, like we've seen Twitter, like, advancing quite a lot lately,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not now. It used to be about, prioritizing content based on people that you follow, based on, on your interests that you've specified, right? And people who have like the, large volumes of like followers, right, used to be
Mm-hmm.
elevated. And I mean, when Elon Musk came, I've seen some changes, right? And now it's like, okay, cool.
Mm-hmm.
We don't necessarily have to, bother you with people who've got like 10 million followers, uh,
Mm-hmm.
and because people are lazy to make an effort or to make a commitment to follow a specific person, but now they can see actually Putumi likes to consume, content from this particular person, and
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
without me having that intentional, action, right, to say I want to follow X, right? because the algorithms now, they say, cool, fine, this person tends to maybe I'm excited about the content for a particular person, right? And so there's like two approaches, right? And one is there's like structured and unstructured, right? And because the unstructured addresses the need that you need to provide a solution that monitors my behavior, right? Without me have to make that explicit action, right? Versus the structured where you depend on that clearly like explicit action. So I mean, at a very, very high level, right? There's the approach that will help us to lead to to design richer experiences, and then there's the real-time experience, right, through the usage of and then there are like many other use cases, and needs that we can elevate. But let me pause a bit. So guys, please, I'm quite keen to hear your comments, as we speak. I'm quite keen to, to receive some questions from you. And I mean, there are a lot of challenges that we face in the corporate environment. I do want to elaborate a bit on that. I'll just need to find, the right moment. So, yeah.
Okay. Okay. So moving on. So imagine you were tasked to design an application that allows users send money from Nigeria to South Africa and vice versa, right? So some of the questions or some of the things that you might be looking to find out are things like, what are the pain points of the users? What are the difficulties they experience when they send money internationally? What are the patterns? So patterns in the sense that if there are existing applications that do this, that have the solutions, what do they do, right? Do we need to get any form of license from any financial institution, or do we need to pay for any services and all of that, right? That's the second thing. Then the next thing is behaviors, right? So what are the behaviors around sending money essentially, right? And then in all of this, the only way to find out all of this is through research, right? And then of course, all of these things also amount to what we now call data, right? So next slide, please. So so the question then is, how do we even get data from our next design project, right? So the simple answer, or the very short and brief answer, is through research, right? And if you notice, I'm not exactly calling it through user research, because research is way beyond user research, because I mean, there's also like the business aspect of design. Yes, could you please go to the next slide? Yeah. So the first thing is, I have categorized this into two types of research, right? So the first one is user research, and then under user research, you know that there is like the qualitative to get quantitative data and to also get qualitative data, right? So for quantitative data, we want to be able to get like numbers, right? We want to be able to get numerical data. We want to, and it would usually cover like patterns and trends, right? So how many people are doing this? How much time does it cost for one to go from one to do X to complete XYZ task, right? How many institutions or financial institutions are currently solving this problem that we are trying to solve, right? So usually what you would try to, a way to achieve or a way to collect quantitative data is usually through surveys, A/B tests, and web analytics. So I remember when you mentioned something about using AI, and also you also use some sort of like web analytics to um, get some sort of like data from like the internet and stuff, right? So in most cases you want to do surveys, and then there are certain times I there was a time I reviewed a survey that someone sends to me, and then I saw the person asking questions that will require the user to write a lot, right? So surveys might work that way, but you should also realize that um, surveys are usually used to get like really quick information. Surveys are not exactly things that you would use to get large information or large data, right? If you want to get behavioral patterns and stuff, real emotions, you wouldn't expect somebody to do all of that in writing, right? So, or in a few clicks or stuff, right? So the point is you should also understand to use these methods or when to use these approaches to get data, right? So if you're looking to get any numerical data, or you're looking to get metrics for the solution that you're trying to build, right? You should look at using things around surveys, A/B testing, web analytics, and yeah, I think I have a question for you guys later on, but pay attention to what I'm saying now, because I mean that is where my question is gotten from. So remember, quantitative data, how I like to think about it is when you talk about quantity, right? So when you say quantity, it's usually how many, how much, right? So you want to know how many things exist in something, right? Quantity. Then the next thing is quality, right? So what is the quality of something, right? So that is how, because I mean, I used to have problems distinguishing between these two initially, right? Until I told myself, okay, one is quantity and the other is quality, right? Now, for qualitative data, what this means is you want to be able to find out how users behave. You want to get their real emotions, you want to get their opinions and even their values in most cases, right? So you would find yourself using questions like why, right? Tell me about a time where when you were stuck using a particular application and why, right? So when you ask a user that question, you will find that they would go on and on and on and on and on and on. And in all of that, your duty as a designer and also as a user researcher at that point is to pay attention to the tiniest of details. You want to look at how you want to pay attention to how they say certain things. You want to also pay attention to how they react to certain things, right? So you want to also watch out for phrases that they use. How do they describe their experience, right? So if someone comes up to you and to say, "Oh man, today," if someone comes up to say, "Today was a bad day," right? And you're like, "Oh, how was it a bad day? What happened?" and all of that. You're like, it's XYZ thing. But if when someone comes to you and say today was a really, 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 really bad day, there's a difference, right? So you realize that there's emphasis on one and then there's like little or no emphasis on the other, right? So you want to watch out for phrases like that, right? Just so you are able to pick out their emotions, how they truly felt about certain experiences. Okay, yeah, how they truly felt about certain experiences that they had, right? And then you want to also have follow-up questions to that. When you are collecting qualitative data, be careful not to ask uh, open-ended questions that will leave them to open-ended or closed-ended questions that will leave them to answer to give you a yes or no answer or maybe, right? Because what you are looking to get at that point is, remember, you're looking to get emotions, you're looking to get behavior, you're looking to understand patterns and all of that, right? So some of the ways you can go about getting qualitative data is through user interviews. Sorry, I'm trying to yeah, so some of the ways that you're looking to get qualitative data is through user interviews. You're also going to get it through participant observation. Now, what I personally, I feel like participant observation is one of my favorite ways to get qualitative data, because that way I am able to, especially doing usability tests, right? So if I am testing with a user, I would like them. Of course, I'll give them the task that I want them to do, right? So maybe the task is I want you to be able to complete your sign up process at the end of this session, right? And then in between, I'll let them know. while you do this, I would like you to think out loud, right? So if there is ever a time you hit a bump, think out loud and let me know how you feel about it, and then I'll just stay quiet and watch you. Now, essentially, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to watch you hit maybe a button. If you hit a button more than twice, and maybe I didn't intend for that to be a button, that means you are confused about that particular element in my design. So you have mistaken that for a button, whereas I don't want it to be a button, right? So I mean, these are like really um simple samples or examples that I'm trying to cite, right? But it could be more in depth than that, right? So those are like the things that you want to ensure you watch out for, right? So another thing also is focus group, right? So if you have a focus group, of course, you can always get like feedback from this set of people almost like immediately rapidly as well. Yeah. So just to summarize, quantitative data, quantity, qualitative data, quality, right? For quantitative data, you want to get
Yeah.
numbers, you want to get metrics, you want to get numerical data. And then how do you do this? Through surveys, A/B tests, web analytics, right? And then qualitative data, you want to understand the quality of something, or you want to you essentially just want to observe user behaviors, their
Yeah.
emotions, opinions, and then you'll be asking a lot of why questions. And then
Sure.
some of the ways to do that is through participant observations, interviews. That's supposed to be in-depth interview, and then focus groups. Of course, there are other ways to do this. Now, my question for you is, having explained all of these types of user research methods, where would you classify? So this is not for you, it's for the audience. So don't answer for them. Yeah. So having explained all of this type of user UX research methods, where would you classify click test? So a click test is like a click-through test. Um, I'm not going to, if I explain it but further, you'll probably get the hang of it. And then where will you classify usability tests? So one is click test and the other is usability test. Where would you classify them? Is click test a quantitative type data or a qualitative type data? Is usability test a quantitative type data or a qualitative type data? So while I wait for the answers, I will just move ahead. Please,
Sure. Sure.
yeah,
Sure. No, thanks.
you're welcome. So the next thing or the next way to get data is market research. Um, we don't exactly talk about this a lot, and I'm not sure why. I feel like we leave it more to the product managers or even the marketing people or the marketing team in your company or whoever you're working with. But I would also like to add that if you are able to get a very good understanding or knowledge about the market that you are designing for or you are building a product for, you would be able to you would be able to add or make certain business decisions in the product, right? It would also inform you on the metrics to look out for, right? So essentially, and it will also help you understand the users that the customer at this point now, no more user segment, right? The customer segment, and then of course their opinions. Now, some of the ways to carry out all of this is the stakeholder interviews, the competitor analysis, reviews. I like to call it review. Essentially, it's like reviews, but I like to check out like existing solutions like on Play Store or App Store, or sometimes even on Twitter, even on Facebook, right? Just type in the name of the product that you're looking for, and then you will just realize that there are a lot of reviews on that product that you're looking for, right? So what you're trying to do is, what are some of the complaints around this product, right? And then in some cases you can also ask for the help of your marketing guys. Now what they will come in to do for you is they can even carry out what is called a SWOT analysis: strengths, weakness, opportunities, and threats, right? So what are some of the opportunities that are there in the market? What is the strength of this particular product? What are the weaknesses? And then how can we fill in those loopholes, right? So what can we do with our products to be better than what we have in the market, right? Or how can we even have an advantage over what we have in the market, right? And then And then of course your stakeholder interview would also expose you to some of those things, because I mean they are like the bearers of the idea, so they have like more understanding about the idea than you probably do, right? So they would essentially just help you understand the business goals, right? And then some of the business metrics that they're looking to meet, right? So I think this is like almost the last. No. Could you please go back to the previous one? Yes. So data to hi-fi design and maybe launch. So now you have all of this data. You have gathered all the data from your user research and then your market research. How do you translate into design? So I find this to be very interesting because a lot of people tend to skip some of these processes. And then I think I had someone ask me this question one time: do you really do all of these things that you say you did in your case study? I'm like, yes, I do. I did, right? Because you will find out that some of the times we tend to jump the rope, and then at the end you probably have to pay for those things that we missed out, right? So one way to translate your the data that you have gotten is by doing a UX analysis. Now, by doing a UX analysis, you will do things like empathy mapping, affinity mapping, and then you might have to answer some how might we questions. And how might we question is around things like how might we do XYZ, or how might we achieve a goal, right? Or how might we solve this particular problem that this user mentioned. So let's say a user says they are finding it difficult to sign up on your platform, right? So how might we solve this particular problem? Or let's say one of the projects I did, we found after we had done our user research and all of those things, it was time for analysis. After we had done the UX analysis, empathy mapping, affinity mapping, all of those things, right? We found that one of the major problems of the products that this solution we're coming up with was discoverability, right? Or accessibility. So we asked the question, how might we solve for accessibility, or how might we solve for discoverability, or how might we solve for awareness, right? So be not exactly awareness, right? But how can these people find what they are looking for exactly, right? So that is one way. I have this image that I got from the nngroup.com. That's the thematic analysis, right? So from thematic analysis, you'll find out that the first step is to gather data. The next step is to read all your data from end to end, listen to all of the interviews, read all of the surveys and all of those things that you have gotten, right? And then the next thing is to code text, to code the text. Yeah, yes. So you're going to code your text. So all of this, you're going to, for the coding of the text, right? I feel like you're going to do that under the affinity map and all of that, right? So what you want to do is, how many people said a particular word, right? So you're going to group them. I feel like I have to do like an entire masterclass of on this, but there's a very good resource online that explains UX analysis, right? So, and also if you look at the image I've also attached, I'm running out of time. That's why I'm trying to go really fast, right? But if you look at the image I have attached to my presentation, you would see the step-by-step way to do all of these things until you get to um, until you get your themes, right? So your themes are supposed to be like the final information that would then feed your how might we questions, right? Yeah, thank you very, very much, Shane. I just saw his comments. Thank you very much. So I think, yes, could you please go back to the slide? I think you changed the screen. Yes. Next slide, please. Yeah, so it doesn't stop there. So the next thing is, after you must have designed, after you must, not even after you must have designed, right? In between your design, because what you want to do is you do not want to build out a product and then have to test later, and then you realize that, oh, there are a lot of mistakes. It's waste of money, right? So it's always advised that you even start to test from like your paper phase. So what that means is when you have a wireframe, you can test your wireframe, right? But if you want to do that, okay, you have a prototype of your product, you can begin to test with your prototype, right? Because they can click through your prototype and then they can give you feedback, right? So all of the feedback that you would get from your usability test would also inform your next round of product iterations. Yeah.
Yeah. So I wanted to was seeing a comment here, from Ambumi, saying UX analysis is extremely underappreciated and is often mistaken for ideation. Thanks for stressing that part at that point. Yeah. So I know it's very easy, for us as designers to jump to the exciting stuff. We get excited to
Yeah.
ideate, share our ideas. Um, you know, because what I've seen is, for me to come up with a kick-ass, solution, it means that I've actually spent a decent amount of time to understand the problem, and being obsessed, to make an effort to be obsessed about understanding the problem, will like really, really like help, and to also change your approach, right? And one of the biggest challenges that I've had, I mean, having worked for different corporate companies, is that it's very, very hard to know where to get data, and yes, the data goes far beyond just the user research, right? And the primary UX data that we usually care about, right? And I mean, we've got a lot of effort that happens within big organizations, right? From different departments, because we're all trying to understand, humans, right? From different angles, right? And I think it will be worth at some point to talk about, how can we efficiently set ourselves up, right? So that because we cannot always have the time to do like proper UX analysis to get the data to do that research right upfront. Sometimes you've got like a 2-week sprint, and through the use of data, right, that we can get from applications that we set up, right? I've mentioned Google Analytics, right? There's like Hotjar and some other applications, right? And there's also like, publications that are shared, right? If maybe you have an interest about learning about a particular investment product, like in South Africa, we've got something called the tax-free savings account. I've seen, a lot of articles being written by, houses that do research, right, to understand the uptake and the challenges of those products, right, and the affordability, etc., right. And I'm mentioning this because it's quite important for us to always ask ourselves, right, what is an efficient approach that we can employ, right? Because this stuff can sound like it's too much to do, right, within a 2-week sprint, right? And so yeah, the the big opportunity, which takes a bit of time, for us to be able to establish the relationships, that we have within our organization, so that we know, you know, who to go to, who to reach out to, right? And to even to understand, the landscape in terms of the existing technologies that we can use to help us to get data, right? And, of course, this is not just about corporate companies, right? Even like small businesses, you might find ways to get rich data via social media platforms, right? Maybe even through a social media, a team that is set up to service, customers, in those platforms, right? And because there was a traditional approach that we used to use, like probably I would say maybe like 7 years ago, right? And the fundamentals, they're still there, but I think in terms of of execution, right, there's a lot that we need to do differently, right? So that we can get to do analysis, at a much like, quicker, like quicker way. And also, I know we've run out of time, and, actually, let me just pause on that note, and because I want us to finish in the next few minutes. I'm gonna move you to the next slide, but I just thought it's important, to talk about, those few points.
Yeah.
Oh, this.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So thank you very much. Actually, right. About the points you raised. Right. There was something you said that I find really interesting. Right.
Yeah,
When you talked about having like a very short time. Let's say you're trying to finish up stuff in like a 2 week sprint and stuff. Right. So you realize that maybe there are certain times that some of the things that make us maybe jump straight into the interesting stuff is lack of time. So there's like a constraint on our time, or there's a constraint
yeah,
on our project, or something, right? Now, you would find, if you ever find yourself in that situation, you should always rely on secondary data. So, what is secondary data? Secondary data is data you didn't get yourself. Is like data that you've gotten from, as you mentioned, publications, even on social media. Now, there are certain times that what I do is, if I see, say, there are certain times I've entered into like a design challenge, and then I still want to go through my design process, which involves research. One of the things I tend to do is I go on YouTube, and then I try to like search for reviews around that product. I go on social
yeah,
media, I check for reviews around that product. Then another thing to take it further, you could reach out to someone. Maybe they made a review about like a solution or something. You can reach out to the person, maybe via email or via their DMs or something. I mean, don't harass people, right? But you can reach out to say, "Oh, I see
yeah,
you made this. I found this to be a very interesting topic. Here is what I think about it. Would you be willing to have a discussion with me where we could talk more about this, right?" And then you will find that in some cases you will get a positive reply and say, "Oh yeah, this is a topic that is really dear to me, and I feel like I'm willing to talk about it." And then you can say, "Oh, that would be your first user interview," and then from there you can move on, right?
yeah,
But in cases where you are not open, or you are not exposed to opportunities like that or situations like that, you can just rely on secondary data and move. But if you must rely on secondary data, always ensure that there is there is a time for testing, because if you launch, or when you launch, you would find out that in some cases you are just going to waste a lot of money and resources on something that doesn't exactly solve the user's problems, right? So you want to be very careful not to totally eliminate um, research and, of course, data gathering in your design process. Yeah. So yeah, that is really just it. And then I think that was my last slide. So yeah,
yeah.
I am a few minutes late, but yeah, thank you very
Okay.
much.
No, 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 no. That's fine. No worries. Yeah, no, no. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for coming. And yeah,
You're
so
welcome.
I mean, this is an interesting conversation, and we're planning to have an African design conference around June, and I think it would be great, to invite you, and we can
So
think about, I still need to share the theme, right? And this,
mhm,
there's a lot to pack on this topic, and I think, as designers, I want us to always ask ourselves, right? What is the better approach, right? Because there's a
mhm,
lot of things that we learn, and sometimes in the beginning, of your career, you try to consume as much of the content that is out there, and then at some point you
mhm,
start applying yourself and questioning yourself, right?
mhm,
How can you do things differently, and also you get to the stage
mhm,
where you can even start contributing, and because design leadership is not necessarily a role, or title, right? But it's really about, having the impact, and being able
mhm,
to ask, like, questions that really make us to change the status quo in terms of how we approach design, right? But yeah, let
mhm.
me not talk too much, and let me say thank you so much. It's been great, to have
You're
you.
welcome.
Yeah, and I want to
Mhm.
thank you guys who've joined, and yeah, I yeah, guys, yeah, we have these sessions, every Thursday. We've got them, fully booked until beginning of June. It will be great, for you to keep coming, and can follow the page stay up to date. And, yeah, at some point, I'll be, open to receive, topics that people want to present. And the main aim is to really, for us to reflect on our learnings and, to ask ourselves, right, how can we do things differently, or how are others doing things differently, right? And as much as we have manual ways of doing things, right, there's a big buzz around, assistive technology, whether you want to call it AI, etc., right? There is value in that, and also even the way we spend, the manner in which we spend our time, right? Because the demand for us to provide, hyper personalized experiences, is here. And we need to be able to position ourselves, right? And this is also like one of the topics that we need to get deep into in terms of execution in the companies that we're working for, right? And also to continuously find ways and to collaborate, because the only way that you can get that data quickly is for us to collaborate and to rely on what others have done internally or externally. Thank you so much, Quinette. It's been great to have you. And thanks to everyone who has joined
My
us.
pleasure.
Cheers, guys.
Yeah. Thank you very much, everyone. Yeah. Bye.
Bye-bye.